Rachel Plummer, Grafton.
Lynn Morgan, Athens.
Kathy Siano, Goodwin, Grafton.
Hardy Merrill, Grafton.
Andy House, Superintendent.
Okay. Any adjustments to the agenda or additions?
I was wanting to know if we could follow up on the baseball group. We had thrown out some ideas and I didn't know what the process was to finalize the ideas, or if we needed to.
So if we put it down on under old
Maybe
business,
7E.
yeah. Basketball, hoop, right?
Right, I got it.
Okay. Communications and public comment. Anybody out there have any concerns that they want to express? Nothing. Review and approve the minutes of October 12th.
Kathy, I apologize, just while we're thinking of adjustments.
Yeah.
So I was just checking, so Deb, there had been a district meeting while I was at the finance, there was a whole district meeting going on. So Deb is running a little bit late, so if we could just have some flexibility for when her report is and maybe move things around. So I should have
Oh,
asked
okay,
that.
okay.
Under adjustments, I apologize.
Do I have a motion? Is there any corrections or additions to the minutes of October 12th?
I move we approve the minutes of October 12th.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Reports, finance.
Okay. Jim is online, but I'll pass out the reports that were provided to me yesterday. This is an actual one for this year so far, which we don't need to spend a lot of time on, I don't believe, because we're early in the year. You got one?
This is, what do you have
I
actual?
can give it to you if you need it, but
No, it's the expense function.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, basically, I think you can go right to the last page, which basically shows us that, this year's budget next to the last page, actually, is 1,756,793. And year to date, we have spent in this district $405,826.78 as of right now. That leaves a balance of 1,350,966 to go for the year, and encumbrances have been identified of $894,312, which says we could have a surplus of $356,638, but I'm sure that that will shrink as the year goes on. So that's why we don't really need to spend a lot of time on this report. But basically, we're tracking along, and we aren't spending as rapidly as we make money.
So will this surplus have anything to do with the SU? With the bus situation and?
This, no,
But
really
just
won't.
your local operating budget.
This is strictly here, and we get an assessment, which we may not, we'll get assessed. I think usually quarterly. We've been assessed twice already this year, but that's set, and we won't have budgeted assessment was. So the next package is the current status of the budget for this year. So I'll hand that out. You got one of these?
Front of me right now, I don't, but I have one. Thank you.
You got one, Andy?
I do.
Where you got one?
Apologize for being late. I was at the high school for a meeting, so I'm sorry.
No, no, it's fine.
It's okay. So, if you go to the first page, it's sort of a summary by, salaries, insurance, contracted services, et cetera. And, you can see if you go to the bottom of the stuff, that in 2023, we spent $1,600,118. And then, in 24, the budget that was approved was $1,793,793, which we're operating to right now. And the proposed budget, as it stands today, is $1,858,758, which is up $101,965. Now, if you look at the detail a little bit higher, you'll see that salaries represent this year's budget 40%. Last year was 42. The health insurance, it's 14 versus 13. And a couple of other key items that make, so salaries and benefits plus your tuition plus what we get assessed from the SU are the major things that contribute to our budget. It's about 70+%. So, you can see that our tuition totals, if you add the two lines together, 190 and 121, 348, about 311,348, which is another 16.7% of the budget. And we have 14 kids right now that are in 7th and 8th grade, and we have a few that are in the pre-K early, I believe, 5 or 6 maybe pre-K that we're going to get charged, I think.
Yeah, don't quote me, I'd have to go pull that number, but
Yeah,
I think that's about right.
It's not a lot of kids.
No.
But anyway, so the total tuition is 311,348. And we've just been going through the SU budget. And as of today, that was 373,520 that we were going to get assessed. That's up $53,206. And there's a couple of contributing factors to that. Most notably our increase in what's the special ed, and also transportation. Special ed and transportation are the two key items. We had a long meeting today, Andy, myself, and several other people in the finance committee. We're looking at a couple of other things, but we're going to be getting together in about 2 or 3 weeks to pretty much finalize what that number will be. And I believe it'll probably be a little bit less because of a couple of things that we're planning to do. But it's a significant number that we will be paying. The next page highlights the budget by category: general education, special education, etc. And you can see general education is up 67,793. Special ed is up 52,103. Guidance is down 41,242. And the others are little pluses and minuses here and there. And that all totals up to the 101,965. So you can see that most of that is in the salaries and special ed.
So guidance is reduced. Is it, she just three days, or is she being funded by another source for 5 days?
She's only 3 days.
3 days.
Mhm. And then we have a clinician. So together their time here equals,
Yeah.
yeah, because she's 3 and Doug is 2 days.
Assume we're on guidance.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering why.
So you can look at it for a minute if you like and ask questions.
Is the 3 days adequate for what we need here?
And I think a key thing for the rest of the board members is to take this package and sort of go through it so that you understand it. Like the last few pages identify, the salaries, which are obviously a significant portion of the budget, and, the benefits. of the people. And we know what the tuition is, and we know what the main cost is for the allocation from the SU. So the key is, do we need all the people? And I would say we probably do, because most of it is determined by law. Is that a correct statement, Andy? That you need the music teacher, you need all of the partial people that we have.
There. I mean. Under like health services, you don't need a full-time nurse. It's very hard to find a part-time nurse.
I know you can't find a part-time nurse for the WNSU,
So, I mean,
I'd say we were fortunate.
again, like the school counselor, I think we're fortunate that we have someone who is able to do that part-time, because it's very hard to find a part-time person to kind of fill those roles. I think that's one of the challenges when your population is, you still have to, like you say, there's this level you have to provide, and
31 kids.
when does that tipping point? 34, 30, I found out today, 34.
Oh, we went up to 34. Wow.
So, yeah, it's.
Gotta write that down.
And I think that that's where like, it can be useful at times to use people in more than one capacity, like our counselor now is part-time counselor. Or, point,
Yeah.
0.8, 0.6,
0.6,
right? But then it's
0.6 and
0.4.
0.4, something else, yeah.
So- Right, so altogether, the position is.
Yeah, I mean, if you could ideally find someone who's like. Got a degree in music, got a degree in art, got a degree in
Right.
PE, and got a, and you could squash that all together and make a full FTE, it'd be an advantage, but that is the challenge. And then it's, you get into where some of our neighbors, or how can we share people, because we do that with some, that's some of the other ways.
Like with Saxon's River.
Well, like Saxon's River shares a PE person with Wyndham Central.
Yeah.
And that's been established for us, so that's why we can't break into it. It's like. But, those are some of the things I think we have to look forward as we look, and how can we maximize things.
And you anticipate, Angela, everyone's coming back next year? I mean, I'm hoping that.
I'm hoping that.
So I really don't think there's a lot we can do with the budget other than what's here right now. For this coming year.
And what about tuition?
Tuition, I'll have a better handle on that probably, early December, I know. I know what, the only one that has come across the payables so far this year is, not Compass, but, grammar school. And grammar school is about $18,000 and something, so it's a little under 20. And I'm not sure what, Rockingham's gonna be, because that's our major one, right now.
I think, we gotta look at the numbers and what the operating cost is, and
Yeah.
what the ask cost is, and I think that, there might be, an opportunity to have a discussion with them about, intra-SU, just charging that state average as opposed to charging more, or charging everybody the exact same. So it's like, so if we can get that down, that would, I think it's 20 something right now. And if we can get them down to that state average, which is 17,
That would be nice.
it's a few dollars here and there,
So
but
we would save a little bit on our tuition if we can do stuff like that. Because the key is, if you take and look at our budget about 1,858,758, you divide it by 45 students, which now is up to 48, right? You added,
Yeah,
because I'm counting in 7th and 8th graders. That's a cost of $41,000 per pupil. And if you pull out the 14 tuitions, which is worth, say, 311,000, that jumps up to 49,000 for the kids. And long-term, that's an issue. So, I just mentioned that. This year, I don't see it as an issue, mainly because of the surpluses that we have. And the fact that the state last year said we had about 77 kids, equivalent head count, rather than what we have, which is 45. So, as long as that doesn't go down more than the 3% that, by law they're supposed to do, and if the yield is factor that comes out from the state of Vermont in December is, where it was last year, at least.
I think I have a meeting on that next week, so,
Okay,
cause their equalized pupil is going away and there's a new weighting system coming in. I'm not sure what the impact will be yet.
but I don't think that's impacted as a law.
Yeah, I think it is.
I'm not
Can
sure.
you explain the weighting system? What do you mean by that?
But anyway, we won't really know what the impact is gonna be of all of this
Until later.
until later, which
Yeah.
is probably gonna be closer to the end of December when the facts come out from the state.
So Kathy, sorry, let me just look at my calendar. So Act 127 is the legislation that changed or will change. I was under the impression it passed, but Act 127 is the one that changes the pupil weighting system.
Yeah, it changes the rating system, and I'm not sure exactly what impact that'll have on us.
That's what I'm saying. And I have a meeting next week on that because we were given a little bit of that at a conference I was at. And, you know, it's a lot of formula and funkiness but they're not even gonna, they're predicting that in December. They're talking May-ish.
So hopefully gonna be more or less than it was before. For us.
That's what's hard to understand because the impact it could swing. Like that's what, you know, and because we've got a high special education population out here, that may actually
Benefit us.
benefit.
Yeah.
So that's the piece that I gotta find out more. You know, like English language learner students are actually weighted pretty high now.
Yeah,
We don't have it
right.
here, you know, so that's, you know, but there's all these different new factors that they put into it. So like I said, there's a meeting next week that I'm gonna be at and I can give you some more information on that.
Because with that, the other key factor is this yield factor that comes out from the state December 1st. And last year, that yield factor was $15,433, which was up significantly from the year before, and hopefully that will be up again this year. The only other thing that I put together a little schedule just to look at what is the Athens Grafton total student head count. And in high school, we have 12 kids in grade 12. We have 8 kids in grade 11, 8 kids in grade 10, 6 kids in grade 9 for a total of 34, 17 in Athens, 17 in Grafton. Then we have the 14 kids in the 7th and 8th grade, of which 10 are in Athens and 4 in Grafton. And then we had 31, now we have 34. So, that's gonna increase it by 3. So Athens Grafton now is 48 kids, and the total students are 79 plus 3, or 82 in total for our whole Athens and Grafton. So if you look at 12 kids are gonna go out next year, out of high school, and 4 kids are gonna go in, so that number is gonna go down. 10 kids are in 7 and 8, and another 3 in the 6th grade, so they're gonna go up. There's nobody else comes in, so that's 13. So the key is with 12 going out, how many come in on the bottom to keep that level? So, you know, this is just something that's gonna keep going forward over time, so we'll have to keep an eye on.
So we have copies of that for us, right?
Actually, you can have this one. Anybody else have any questions? With the main understanding that this is a moving target right now.
So, Andrew, you have two new kids. What grades are they in? Um,
Fourth grade and sixth grade,
Fourth and fifth.
and another one in third,
Third grade, so that's an 8 now,
seven.
7. So the 3 that are added, they go where? Grade 6.
Not updated, let me. Updated. So there was 6 in third grade and now there's 7.
Okay,
There was 5 in fourth, now there's 6. There was 3 in sixth and now there's 4,
okay.
right?
Yep. Any other questions?
Thank you, Larry. Keep us posted. Principals report.
So we just went over the enrollment. We did have a new family move in to Athens, so that's, the 2 new students. And then another student came, back to us from another school in the SU. And that was that third, not new, but, came back to us. And then Hardy, those projections, I believe I shared with you, right? It's like, looks like that rainbow one. Looks like this. You have that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a current one, but I did have one.
Okay. I can share it with you again. So
Yeah,
you
why
have
don't you
it.
just send it to me?
Yeah.
Whatever your new numbers are.
We just had our Thanksgiving feast and our veteran appreciation lunch today. Really great turnout, close to or maybe a little bit exceeded 100 guests here at the school, despite the yucky weather this morning. The event is coordinated by our PTO. So thank you to everybody that's on the PTO and all the teachers and staff and community members that cooked or donated. It was great. And also thanks to our students. We had a singer, some kids read some poems. It was really sweet. An update on PBIS and some fun. So we recently hung up some new posters of our agreements throughout the building. We were able to use some grant money to beef up our posters, and you can actually see one right there. And this helps us when we need to like silently redirect a kid. We can just like kind of point to it or go right over to them and review the expectations. We continue to hand out our Panther Paws to students that show that they're kind, who persevere, demonstrate safe behavior, and take care of their community. Once the classrooms fill their classroom jar, they pour those paws into a school jar. And once the school jar is full, we celebrate them. And our most recent celebration was suggested by our school counselor, which was a rolling chair race. And so the staff dressed very silly in like knee pads and elbow pads and helmets, and the kids got streamers in either red, blue, or yellow, and it was a really good time. I mean, the kids really liked it. There was a little concession stand, they had tickets to enter. It was really great, and I have to say the red team won. And I was on the red team. They made us do it again just to make sure, and we won again.
We're coming out.
It was me, Mrs. Lisi, very competitive, and Miss Vogel. So that was super fun. The kids were cheering and yelling. We came out to music, was running around the gym. It was a really fun celebration. That was the Athens Community Forest. I'm not sure who's had a chance to get over there, but Mrs. Stern, our 3rd and 4th grade teacher is bringing the kids over to the Athens Community Forest, which is officially called the Raymond Bemis Community Forest, and it's a project of Bull Creek Common Lands. And Mrs. Stern is working with our clinician, Mr. Doug, to head over to that forest once during each season, and they're gonna be recording their observations, doing some tree identification, and conduct a tree and plant inventory and look for animal tracks. And we're welcoming chaperones on all 4 of those trips, so encourage folks to go. We have our circus residency next week. Troy Wonderly will be here Monday through Friday. Each classroom of students will spend 45 minutes a day practicing their circus skills. And then on Friday, the students and staff will put on a show for caregivers in the community to come and watch. And that performance will happen at 10 o'clock on November 17th on Friday. And then we had our parent teacher conferences on the 2 recent half days last Friday and then this past Monday. And 100% of our families attended a conference with their teacher, either in person or virtually. So there was a big push by the teachers to be sure to get everybody scheduled. So that was really great. That's it.
And if I could just add on to that, so because we did change up parent teacher conferences or family teacher conferences this year, we just did a quick little survey of our staff, and we're gonna be putting one out to the community. If we wanna get some feedback on did the model work for families? Did it not work for families? And so we'll be doing that, so that should be coming out shortly.
Next one down here is basketball, the basketball hoop. Lynn wanted an update on that, if there's any changes or just leaving things the way they are. What's the status on that? I think you answered it last time.
I think we did. I thought we were just gonna put some lines out there and
Yeah.
say no
That was
parking.
a
and make sure
suggestion
that
made,
we
and I
had the
was
court
wondering, are we
available.
going ahead with that?
And
So-
of
so-
course, at this time of year, it's probably not gonna get used too much as basketball court out there. I'd rather do it inside.
So I think whether you choose to redo your parking lot, will have, why we probably haven't painted any lines or done anything yet, but I think also, the cost of moving that basketball hoop would be tremendously expensive because of the amount of concrete that is in the ground to hold that post there. I was talking with Gary, he said there's a considerable amount of concrete that's been put down there, and so getting it out would be, you'd almost have to cut it out by a new.
Yeah, so the suggestion we had at the last meeting is what we're going with.
I think that's probably,
Okay.
yeah, after the lot gets paid, then, just mark it off and.
Yeah, I think it's looking at once, once we redo the parking lot, look at, whatever type of, striping or any kind of thing you want to do out there, that'll be the next
Yeah.
piece, so.
Okay. So can we wanna back up to reports for, with the data assessment?
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I skipped down to that one, sorry.
Sorry. So if you're a Rolling Stones fan, these are the Glimmer Twins.
I get to be mid.
You could be, yeah, you can be Keith, there you go, so. Anyway, so Deb Cardane, our Director of Instruction and Innovation, and Shelley Wilson, our Director of Student and Family Systems. So they're here just to present on data and some other things. And so I'm gonna try and do Vanna, but give me a second here to do that real fast. But and Krista just joined us, also Kathy, so you're aware, so.
Well, we're really happy to have the chance to be here. This is our second year, and this is personally my first time being here at a Grafton board meeting. So we're looking forward to having this chance to talk with you about teaching and learning and our kids, but also come back in the spring and do the same thing. So that it becomes a routine. Slides that Andy's pulling up. We can start talking, maybe. Oh, there they go.
Go.
Public tech. All right, you there?
Yeah.
All right. So we kind of scheduled ourselves into each board's time this fall just to have a chance to talk about teaching and learning and give you a sense of where things are at with the data related to your students in this school, but also really to start having conversations about how we're using data. This is my second year, this is both of our second years here, and things that we're making changes and shifts and trying to be very mindful about those shifts and making sure we're all kind of in the know around the information that we're using to help us know how to help our kids. Anything to add to that? All right. So for today, we're going to share fall math and ELA, English Language Arts data. We'll also talk about some student progress over time. And we're going to look at some examples of how we're using specific diagnostics to really dig in and get to know what our kids need. And we're going to share the data related to SEL, social emotional learning. So that's it. All right, so ELA. So we've got a handful of assessments that we are utilizing in our classrooms with a goal of developing a plan that's efficient so that we're not really using a lot of teacher time to gather assessment data for our kids, but also informative so that teachers can really actually target what they're doing based on kids' needs. So it's kind of those two goals we're holding very closely with our academic data. One of the tools we use is MWEA MAP, which you might have heard of, or you might have talked with kids, teachers, stands for Measures of Academic Progress. And what that is a computer-based assessment. You can sit down at a computer and it measures three things. It gives us information about their vocabulary knowledge. It gives us information about their informational text reading, so like nonfiction text. And then it also gives us information about their literary text reading, meaning like fictional, right? So that's kind of the image of MAP.
So who's at the computer, the teacher or the child?
The child, and this is a district-wide assessment that was in place before we came. So many of these things we're carrying forward and determining, are these, we're constantly reflecting on, is this useful for us to know how to help our kids? And so MAP's one of those ones we wonder about because of that exact reason. Is this useful? Kids are on a computer. Some kid, is it measuring their reading or is it measuring their computer skills? Right.
So we are required by the AOE to have a local assessment on top of the state assessment, the Vermont CAP, right? Cognia was the other term we used around it. Before that, it used to be Smarter Balance. Before that, it used to be something else, right? So we're required to have some local assessment. And so about 6 years ago, the SU went to MAPS and away from, I cannot remember what it was, to be honest with you. So it was about 6 years ago, we decided to do it. We launched it about 5 years ago. So
And it was good that we had it because when the state changed last year, we maintained some consistency, which I think.
So do you do this with each kid every year? So in other words, do they take these tests every year, first grade, second?
at least two times a year. So we do it in the fall and then you do it in the spring.
And then you go up to next level, next grade, and you do the same thing, so you can track it.
Yeah.
Yep. And this year we did, and last year actually, we did make the decision not to have kindergarten do it right in the fall.
Yeah.
Because of the computer aspect. I don't know.
If you push that button, you can control it.
I understand that.
It's a big one.
All right. Okay, so we're gonna look at some graphs, and I wanted to help everybody understand these graphs. There's a top line, and then there's the two bottom lines. The top line and the pink bubbles are kind of the explanation. The top line map gives us a measurement of growth. So growth, and so what that is indicating is how many of the percentage of our kids who matched the level of growth that is expected of them. That's the top line. So blue being kids, that percentage, 24% of the kids exceeded, right? 4% met, that met the expected amount of growth from last year to this fall. And then so on down to, so 28% and 36%. The bottom two, the left bar is last year's fall percentage of kids who achieved proficiency on the math. And then the right is this fall percentage of kids who achieved proficiency or did not. Does that much make sense to everybody as far as what that graph is representing? Or are there questions that I could help clarify?
I'm still confused.
Yeah.
The numbers, what do they, or the colors, what do they represent?
Yep, so there's a key down at the bottom.
Okay.
And what this is, and we're gonna look at two different assessments similar to these, it's comparing our kids to a national sample of other kids taking the same assessment.
Mhm.
So blue means kids who scored above the 80th percent of all the other kids,
Oh,
right?
okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay, that sort of makes sense.
So think of a bell curve,
Mhm.
Yeah,
right? So again, the 24% is way over on the right on a bell curve.
yeah.
The 36%, that's your left of the bell curve.
Mhm.
kind of thing.
And we have questions about these scores. They're not what we want to see.
No.
Mhm.
This is English language arts, by the way. Now, one of the things we're really working hard at this year is developing some some common understandings of learning. So this is a model we use a lot with teachers to talk about reading. It's called the rote model. It's based on a whole decade's worth of research. The idea being there are two areas that really are important when kids are learning to read. One being they've got to know that bottom area that says word recognition. They've got to know how to decode, right? They've got to know how to pull words off of a page. The top one, it's covered by that little thing, but it says language comprehension.
Yeah.
Got to be able to understand the language that's within the book, right? Makes sense?
Mhm.
Yeah. And then they've named all these other things in there that go into each of those broad components. The other thing the research says is that if kids can't decode, they can't tend to all the other things up at the top. So we have to make sure our kids can decode. So that's where we started a year ago. We started there, is how are our kids doing with decoding? Now, if you look back at that map score, we didn't get any information about how they're doing with decoding, right? It was a big picture, like 30,000 foot view kind of an assessment. So this was in place before we came. Special ed actually started using a measure called DIBELS, which I should put what it means, Dynamic Indicator of Basic Early Literacy Skills. So it's another assessment. I did like that. I pulled it.
I know, I
That
was,
was
yeah,
impressed.
Does not.
that was good. I was about to Google it for you real quick.
And this measures a combination of different skills, the foundational skills that go into decoding. This assessment gives us that information. It's not on a computer, and it's a one-on-one teacher sitting with a student interviewing them. So it's quick little tasks, and we get this kind of information. So you just looked at kind of some disparaging kind of information, right? That graph's not so pretty. Looking at these skills with this measure called DIBELS, our kids over time, because we started using this 3 years ago. So the top line, 21 to 22, BOY stands for beginning of year. And 22, 23, beginning of year, and then the bottom is this year. So that's showing us our kids decoding across the last 3 years, which is encouraging. This is your kids, this is Grafton's kids.
But it's still 58% in the red.
Yep.
That's
Yeah. It takes time to make these changes. And we have this is all of your kids. So the other thing that's tricky with your kids, and this will come up, I think, in all of our data, when you have a small number, it's hard. You'll see big colors that are less kids, right? But we want to make sure, our goal is to have no red. Or if we have the tiniest bit of red, to know exactly how to help them, right? So when we have that score, we take that information. I don't know how to go back.
There's a
Yeah, there we
back-
go. So that 18%, those 18 kids, what we now are doing, and this has been, we worked on this all year last year, and it's solidly in place now, is we gather more information about them. What do they need exactly to help us help them? And this is an example of some of the data we're using. I'll give you a quick explanation. I couldn't bring you any class size data because your classes are too small and we're not allowed to share that level of data. But that left circle, this is one student. So this is a real student. That left circle is their literacy skills based on another diagnostic assessment. When a kid comes up that we say, oh, that of those 18 kids, we pull them aside and we find out more. So this student, all those letters mean something. BC means beginning consonant. DI means digraphs. FC means final consonant. So when we sit with teachers and look at this data every month, we can say, okay, this student digraphs are an unknown thing to them. So we need to teach that. It's our job to teach that. So we're getting to that level of granularness, granularity. And then we are also starting to track, okay, and now the student is getting extra support. And where's that extra support happening and what are they doing? That's what you see up in that top right-hand corner. And we are, we'll keep progress monitoring them. So every other week, we'll take a quick little dipstick on them, quick 1 minute score, similar to what you see there, where we look at how are they doing? Is what we're doing helping them? Is it not? Then we're going to change what we're doing. So we're trying to get very diagnostic about what we're doing with our kids who are not showing.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you said this
Yeah.
because you had said this at another
yeah,
board.
yeah.
The student, everything you see red on the left
Yeah.
should not, the student shouldn't know that at this time.
Sure.
So,
yes.
but
Yep.
that's what you, so is that a similar
is
profile of
Still
it?
true, yeah, and so everything on the right, we're gonna fill that right with green. And then we'll move on to the left and work on those skills.
So the
right?
fact
We
that
think
this
of that,
student
yep,
is all red on the left is not necessarily a bad thing for their age.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
it's just
Yeah,
like.
no, that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. So that is.
Not working now? What did I get? It's because all right, now try it. No.
Yeah, it is. And if I go back. Oh, now you got, oh, there we go.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? In our schools this year, starting this year, we have a evidence-based phonics word study programming happening in every classroom. We took the year last year to choose it, and that's K through 6th. K through 3rd has one kind of programming. 4th through 6th is delving into a different kind of programming more appropriate for their age. So we've started there. Our interventionists have been trained with a very explicit kind of programming, multi-sensory SAND. And so when kids aren't getting in the classroom, they've got another avenue to learn with an interventionist. And every month we're meeting and talking about our data. We also have K through 3rd grade. Almost all of our teachers, plus our interventionists, are doing it's called Lead to Read, working with Stern Center, which is a Vermont-based literacy institution that does great training. So we're training our teachers to really know how to use data and help our kids.
And just to add on, so
Yeah.
all the special educators that lost a month to Lead to Read, they started 3 years ago going through that. The other piece is, just to remind you that about 5 years ago, or just prior to COVID, so maybe 4 years ago, the district made a huge dive into Fontes and Pinnell as a reading program. We made a very concerted shift away from Fontes and Pinnell last year because the research shows that it does not do the things it says it does all the time. I'm trying to say that as politically correct as possible.
You might say it builds some habits that are not supporting kids and being successful.
Right.
So I have a question on that.
Yeah, we can pause.
What happens to a child that's just a sight reader and not phonetically? And how much of this data you have out here is affected by the fact that these kids are on either their little phones or their games or playing on a computer a game rather than reading? I mean, they can do it all on electronic stuff. And I know that there's games that they have on a computer in the classroom that boosted in math and some reading or vocabulary. I've seen it. I'm just curious. Those scores are really low. And how much of it is impacted by the fact of technology right now with these kids?
It's an excellent question. It's an excellent,
I think that-
like they're not reading.
No,
Yeah.
and the other piece is, what are parents and family members doing at home? Are they reading to kids? Are there books? Do they take them to the library? Oh, that's an impact.
And I think when we think about how are we gonna impact our kids' skills, we want all of it, right? We want kids reading at home. Every kid should be reading at home and being read to at home. And what do we need to do to support that? And we want to be doing what we're doing in the schools as well, but I think it's almost a wraparound hope that we land in a place where we can.
I mean, I can relate to that,
Yeah.
being a kiddo that lost most of the first grade because of illness. And they put me in a thing about phonics. I didn't know what the hell they were talking about. It was foreign to me. And I really had to look at words to memorize what the word was. And that's how I learned to read. It was tough. I didn't get it till like 5th grade.
Yeah.
And I struggled, and I can appreciate, I still don't know the phonetic part. I have to ask my husband to spell words for me. I mean, I can see it, but I can't put it on a piece of paper phonetically.
Yeah, and they've learned, I mean, since we learned to read, and even since my son, my kids are 20s, it's changed drastically in the last 15, 20 years as far as what we know about what humans need to do to be able to pull those words off the page. We're trying to keep up with the research, really.
As a parent, just to go off what you said, Kathy, though,
Yeah.
we read at home, but if my kid doesn't have the building blocks from here, I don't know how to, I'm not a teacher.
Oh,
I don't
that's
know how
another,
to
that's the
teach her
other
that.
piece.
So I can read with her
Yes.
all the time, but if she doesn't have those specific skills that a teacher has to teach, because I'm not a teacher, then I'm stuck.
But the fact that a parent or family member is reading to the child, they get interested in the story, even if they're listening to it.
Well, that's that language comprehension. When
Right.
you're reading at home,
Yeah.
that's all that upper, we call them the upper strands, right? Like knowledge. Kids need to know things. They need to have experiences to be able to understand what they're reading about.
And then you ask questions about it. What did you like about the story?
Talk about it.
Yeah.
Having
But-
talk at home.
To build on that a little bit, and I'll lean on Shelley here too, because she's got a special ed background too, and much more extensive than mine. So you're asking, okay, so all this stuff and the walkthrough that Deb and Shelley will go through here, when we're looking at a student through the regular ed lens, right? We start at that tier 1, we call it, which is everybody gets the same thing. Then the data comes out, we see, oh, Johnny needs this little extra in DICOMs or wherever it is. So we target that intervention, right? Maybe in the classroom, maybe we need to pull the student out or have them work in the classroom with a specialist. They're still not getting it. Then we go down to the next, then we put a plan in place. Then we're constantly working to try and target that intervention. And so I like to think sometimes like a medical kind of thing, right? You go to the doctor and they poke you and how you feeling, give your blood pressure and all that. That's what everyone gets, right? But then when you go, I got this ache here, then they're gonna do something more. No, let's go get an x-ray. Then now you're all of a sudden you're on an orthopedic or a, whatever to go further. So we're trying to constantly target. So we're not just saying student doesn't read, let's give them special ed, because it may not be what they need, or they might need only that much. Is that?
Sure. Yeah, I think that your story, what I am taking away from you sharing your personal experience, my hope, and I think our collective hope, is that we want data, we don't want to take data just for the sake of taking it. We want it to serve a purpose, and that number one purpose is to help kids. So my hope is that in the example you shared, the type of data that Deb is working with Angela and classroom teachers and interventionists and special educators on is focused and narrowed so that we don't have to wait until 5th grade until a kid feels like, oh, I'm finally getting it, right? That we can narrow in on, oop, we're noticing
this particular skill is lagging, so we're gonna, we're gonna teach it this way, this way, this way, this way. We're gonna tell mom and dad and family at home, like, here's how you can help your kid, you know what I mean? It's more of like a comprehensive approach. And I appreciate what you said as well. Like, it makes me think, I'm gonna talk about student and family data in a little bit and how our families are feeling and students are feeling. But I love that makes me think about, gosh, how can we help bridge the gap for parents, right?
Yeah.
And how can we, we need to maybe get a little more prescriptive about how we can, parents of kiddos that are struggling to read, how can we help them with the particular language and activities at home? Because reading to your kid is pretty broad, right? But like, what types of questions should you ask to help emphasize, not emphasize, what's the word, to help practice what they're doing at school, etc. So brings up a whole bunch of really interesting things for us to focus on.
Right, we ready for math? Now that we have all the, we know the graphs. Let's see if I can get down there. Okay, so similar scenario for math, and I will just keep emphasizing this math data is so 30,000 foot view, right? Like, it's like an airplane view. What is math measuring in math? Operations and algebraic thinking, these are the categories teachers get. Geometry, statistics and probability, and number systems. Again, computer-based. Here's our math scores. Same scenario, right? The top is measuring their growth, and the bottom is measuring last fall to this fall. All your kids. So similar to literacy, we're trying to get a very diagnostic with our math understandings about our students. This year, we've started utilizing an assessment system called Forefront, and it's made for math. So same idea. What are the foundational skills that are getting in kids' way to do the algebra in math, right? This assessment measures their foundational skills. Number sense, it's our first year. So this is the first round. All of our students get assessed. Again, it's an based. So this is a sit down, and it's actually with like manipulatives and stuff. Kid plays with things and the teacher asks them questions. They actually really love it. The system that holds the data is really dynamic. So we've had really great experience. So you'll see similar circle, right? Again, each of those things represents, this is a student, represents their skill in that area. NWS is number sense, something about number sense. I'm definitely literacy oriented, working on the math. But you'll notice when we look at this kid, so sequencing number, that yellow area sequencing, and then FNWS is writing numbers. That's an area they need support in order to have this solid foundational area of number sense before they can go on to the other areas that they need to support. So we're working in a very sequential manner, like this comes before this comes before this. And our interventionists have done an amazing job collecting this data. So in the fall, that was their main role, was to pull and work with kids one at a time to get all of this clear picture of where they were at. We've got a lot of teachers for math piloting a new math program this year. There was a varied use of quite a few different resources. So we're narrowing in on a single math program. I've had great reports. It's called Illustrative Math. We work closely with an organization called All Learners Network, who are, they're another Vermont organization that supports math, and we have a coach that comes and works directly with teachers, supporting them and their knowledge of how to help their kids. They are doing professional development training at all of our PD days, and again, those monthly data meetings, we're looking at our math data there as well. So that's, the next step is going to be going into the family, and any other questions about math before we move to family surveys. We're encouraged by what we're seeing with the foundational skill growth, and I think I look forward to our spring having another chance to sit and look at data with you.
So I'm going to jump in and talk with you all about some survey data. In WNESU, the decision was made to work with Panorama Education. And so they are an outfit out of Boston. There's a couple slides about them here. Oh, I want to go forward. Oh, no, I want to go backward. Oh, boy. Panorama is a company out of Boston. They do a lot of different things. I like to explain it. It's kind of like a digital warehouse / bulletin board where we can hold all this data that Deb has just talked about. And the teachers are collecting, the interventionists are collecting, etc. We need a place to put it and to store it so that we can look at it in a useful way. So that's one of the main things that Panorama is doing for us as a district. And Deb mentioned data meetings that occur monthly at every school. And so we use Panorama as the kind of like the lens with which to look at all the data. So we can compare it all nicely. There's all kinds of bells and whistles. We're still learning about those bells and whistles, and hoping, we learn a lot about Panorama all the time. Another feature that Panorama is known for in schools is really about, sorry, I'm having a hard time with this, is for student surveys. And so the Agency of Education requires every school in Vermont to give a climate survey every year. And so last school year, 22-23, was the first school year where we used Panorama as the delivery system for our climate survey. So that's, we did a climate survey for students, and then we did one for families. And that's the data that I'll just review with you here tonight. I'm not going to get too big into these are Panorama slides, and they're a little sales pitchy, so we'll just ignore that part. They want to talk about how great they are. They're great. We get it. Panorama does serve a lot of students. They over 10 million in over 600 districts. And so one of the nice advantages about using Panorama is that we can compare ourselves and the results that we get on the surveys to students all across the country, which is, which can be really useful. It helps us know, just like that academic data, where do our kids stand in comparison to others. This is just a little blurb about, there's our theory of action. We've worked on that as a district group over and over the last couple of years before I started working here last fall. And then, Panorama has a little blurb about all the great things that they hope to achieve by giving us all these services. So the why, I did mention one of these already. Why do we do surveys? First and foremost, it does fulfill that agency of ed requirement that we have to do one so that we get that feedback. It also helps us at the district level and at the school level to plan and to be strategic about it. So using the results from the surveys can inform programs and instruction and all kinds of operational activities at the school level, but also at the district level. Every school is also required, starting back this year, right, to develop something called a continuous improvement plan, or a CIP. We have one at the district level that we work on as a leadership group. And then at the school level, buildings like Grafton will be using this data to help inform that continuous improvement plan. Here's the things the survey told us, and here's what we're going to do to improve. It also identifies areas for more attention, support, and intervention. And then it gives us just a general sense of students' well-being, how they're feeling, and also families. It's important for us to get that feedback as well. So here's a little outline of both surveys. For the family survey, we looked at these 5 areas. What are families reporting as barriers to engagement? How do they feel about school safety, climate, fit, and then their level of engagement with the school? For students, you'll notice that the surveys are only for kiddos in grades 3 through 12. And so the language in the surveys, the students do them on the computer, and they do them independently. So the language, is not accessible to kindergartners, first graders. Panorama does have a different type of survey that teachers can take about younger students. And so we're probably gonna be rolling that out this year as a pilot as well, just to get information about the younger students, because they can't report it themselves. So what we looked at for the student topics are there's some that are the same. We did belonging, climate, engagement, rigorous expectations. So like, you know, how are students feeling about how much teachers are, you know, asking of them academically. We also asked about safety, and then also student and teacher relationships, how students feel about how their teachers feel about them.
Family, we had, well, to certain areas there, how come you don't have curriculum?
Like how they feel about the curriculum? That's a good point.
Yeah, that is a good question. I think that there are, you know, there are definitely questions about teaching and learning within those subcategories. And one of the nice things about this survey feature is that the group here at Grafton can really dig into every single question and how families responded. As you can imagine, it's a small data set. I'm going to show you in a second. You know, there were 10 families that responded. And I think that I'm very encouraged by those parent-teacher conference numbers, right? Because I think that there were some factors last year. It was the first year that we did the survey. The timing of it was a little poor, and, you know, I'll take ownership of that. We had just done a lot of computer generated surveys for students and families. So we have a better plan this year to do the family survey earlier and to make it coincide with March parent-teacher conferences, so that we can have computers set up, right, for families like, hey, thank you, Deb, for doing your parent-teacher conference. Would you please do our family survey? There's also, you know, those funny codes. People can do it on their phone. Thank you for funny codes. You know what I meant.
You know what you meant.
Yeah. Families, you know, because most people have a phone. You can do it on the go. There's different ways that you can do the survey. And so I will be working with principals throughout the winter on brainstorming ideas to get more family engagement, because you guys had about 21% or 27 families participate in the survey, and that's pretty consistent. Actually, that's a little higher than the district average. I think the district average was around 21%. So again, small data set, we'd want to push that up as close to 37 or however many kiddos you said you had as possible. For students, you know, it was 21 students were eligible to take the survey and 20 took it. So that was a high percentage. I won't go over these. You guys hopefully have this slideshow. I just want to keep moving along. Like, these are how Panorama defines each of these topics. So by way of example, what do we mean by school belonging? Well, the questions are written to get to how much students feel that they are valued members of the school community. So the definitions are here for each of these topic areas. Engagement, safety, climate. This is just a brief description. The results are listed as percent favorable. So the higher the results, the better the score, essentially. So this slide explains where, like, when you see 81% favorable, it kind of drills it down to what exactly that means. So here's a sample question. How excited are you about going to this class? And there's, you know, 5 choices. Are you not at all excited, slightly excited, somewhat excited, quite excited, or very excited? And so Panorama is telling us that those top 2, quite excited and very excited, those are favorable results. It's, you know, it's a little wordy, but it's taken me a lot of practice to like be able to understand and synthesize what exactly are we talking about, like percent favorable. So Any questions on that? And again, you know, you guys have this slideshow, so you can review those a little more in depth than how I'm gonna explain it here. Okay, so first is the is the student survey results. And because most national schools, I guess, have sixth graders in the secondary level, there's a split here between grades 3 and 5, and then grade 6 is a standalone. That's a little clunky when I've presented this at other schools. I would love to be able to lump the survey results as to how the schools are set up. Like, it would be great to squish those sixth grade results right in here, but then we lose the ability to compare it to other kiddos the same age across the country. So that's that distinction. So these are results for grades 3, 4, and 5 here at Grafton. You can see the highest favorable result was in kids feeling that the school has rigorous expectations, and, you know, kind of goes down in descending order, with the lowest result being in school engagement. Over on the right-hand side, these little bubbles represent where that percent score compares to those national results. Other, and a kind of a cool feature of Panorama is that you can really customize that to rural schools with similar rates of free and reduced lunch, and etc. So that you're not comparing to, like, you know, a school of 2,000 kids in the middle of a city or something like that.
What were some of the questions for school engagement?
Yeah, so that's one like cool thing or interesting thing, useful, is like when the staff and I look at this, we can click on that eye and it gives you the exact question and then breaks it down, like not at all, a little bit, somewhat, a lot, a super lot. And then from there, you can even click and get strategies to improve that score, or what things you could do. There's like different playbook. There's like different ideas for it, which is really helpful when we meet as a staff to come up with new
And
plans.
for school safety, do you have questions on, do you feel bullied or harassed?
So thank you for asking that question, because I can go in right now and give you an example. So your question was about engagement, right? Student engagement. So here's just a couple random sample questions. How interested are you in your classes? When you are not in school, how often do you talk about ideas from your classes? In your classes, how excited are you to participate? So these individual questions, I mean, Angela already said it, but it's nice because you can drill down to, you know, and separate it out by male and female, or students with disabilities, students without disabilities. There's all kinds of different metrics that you can look at in those answers.
If I could just add in one thing, so
Mhm.
once you drill down, so like the one where Shelley just said, like, how often do you talk about school outside of school, right? Like, not every, maybe students don't understand how that's worded all the time. So, but as educators, we can look at that and say, if it's really low, oh, maybe we need to we're not teaching to the test, but we need to meaningful say, hey, what did you talk, when you go home, talk to your parents, just as you were talking about reading, Kathy, earlier, right? When you go home, and so now you're reinforcing those questions so that when the test or when the survey comes out, students can make that better connection. Oh, that's what they meant. Yeah, I go home and I talk to my parents all the time about, but maybe when they took this, they didn't make that connection.
Well, I guess if I saw that question, if the question was worded by, do you talk to your friends at school? Or, you know, are you connected with a friend rather than, you know, I've asked my son, what did you do today? Nothing.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. But we know many of our families, anecdotally, we know, ask those questions, right? And so it's us as educators helping make that connection for students. Not saying, oh, I know you go home and talk like, oh, let me click it. No, it's throughout the year talking about it, so.
And
I
that-
think it's, go ahead.
One of the things that we had talked about as a staff is like our teachers post on Remind all the time. Could they post like a photo and say like, be sure to ask your child about, and then it gets them to talk about.
Yeah.
So that's, one of the ways that
Sure.
we've identified to
Mhm.
boost that a bit.
The conversation that I loved was the one that was like, and what can we be doing? Like, what are the things that happen in school that kids can't wait to come home and talk about? Like, so to me, that's regardless of how much our kids understand the question, to be having those conversations with teachers and principals and thinking about like, how can we make school so exciting that they can't help but go home and talk about it, right? Like, those are fun conversations and powerful ones.
I'm laughing because my kid would come home and say, yeah, so-and-so threw up in class today.
Yeah.
That's big deal. Right. And then for the school safety piece, there are several questions about bullying. One of them is, if a student is bullied in school, how difficult is it for him or her to get help from an adult? So, again, it gives us information about how kids are feeling about bullying, getting along with others, etc. So I just went ahead here to the next slide. This is just for the grade 6 cohort. Comparing, it's interesting to me that the rigorous expectations, is still the top, the area that is reported most favorable. And, some of those percentile comparisons for this cohort is a little higher, which is unusual because usually as kids get older, they report more negative things. That's a trend that we saw with this data. So it was interesting that the younger kids reported things a little less favorably than the 6th grade students.
Yeah.
And it's, there could be many reasons. One of the things that comes out to me, not that I want to negate the results in any way, but there is a language component, right? Of like understanding what the question is asking. So it's something for us to think about as we prepare for next year's survey. This is a summary slide. I won't get too deep into this, but these are just like noticings from the data. I pointed out the one about the grade 6 was a little higher than grades 3 through 5. The 6th graders reported favorable results in school safety. I think it was towards the 92nd percentile, so it's above the 80th percentile. So that's a really encouraging piece of data. And then for both cohorts, school engagement, which is defined as how attentive and invested students are in school, and school belonging, which is how much students feel they're valued members of the school community, are areas of focus and improvement. And again, when this data, came out, we started talking about it in the summer. Principals have access to it, and Angela is working with her staff on addressing these issues.
Thank you. And I would just add in, we did the survey once, we'll do it again, right? The real big, we'll be seeing, are there trends over years?
Right.
Right? So as we tweak
Mhm.
and make those changes, if we consistently see the same like area really low, then that's telling us something, right? So.
Switching gears to the family survey, here are just some of those definitions of those broad categories. The barriers to engagement one is really interesting because it asks families, how big of a problem are the following issues for being involved with your kiddo's school? So that question is a little bit different than all the others. I just wanted to point that out. School safety, school fit, climate, and then family engagement. So again, we've got a very small data set here. But the most favorable category was barriers to engagement. So families, so that's like the opposite. It's the opposite, yeah. So families are reporting less
barriers, which is a good thing. One of the most interesting pieces of data, as someone who, you know, can look at deep down in all those schools' data, is that I am also, one of my roles here in the district is as the McKinney-Vento homeless liaison. I work with families who are experiencing housing insecurity and who are meet the definitional criteria for homelessness. And transportation is such a huge problem in that subset of my work. And so I expected families to be reporting huge issues with transportation. And for Grafton, it was like a non-issue. The families, again, it's a small set of data of families that reported, but the biggest barrier to that families across the district reported to being involved in their child's school was their schedule. They are reporting feeling so busy that they can't be meaningfully involved in their child's school. So that's striking to me. And we've talked about that at the leadership level. Like, how can we create more opportunities given the level? I mean, people are working hard and they're very busy and there's activities, and some families, people work multiple jobs. And so it's being aware of that so that families can still feel like they can be involved. That was a pretty interesting piece of data. Let's see, on the family survey, the family engagement was the highest, above the 60th percentile when compared to national norms. You know, a little below average in the WNESU averages in several of those areas. An interesting subset here was that 30% of families report that they meet with their child's teacher once a month or weekly, which I thought was also encouraging. The rest of these slides are just, you know, here's things we can do with Panorama to take action. So another feature of Panorama, I think Angela mentioned it before, is that when a principal or administrator or teacher, actually anybody, when you look at your survey results, it kind of branches off into, well, here's what you can do about it. And so coupled with the data meetings that Deb talked about, on the social emotional end of things, we have a meeting called a CARES meeting, which takes place here every other week, which is a group of it's the guidance counselor, the clinician, myself, the restorative practices coordinator, Angela. There's a group, the RP coordinator here for the school, the nurse. We get together and we look at the social emotional data in Panorama. Like, we look at things like behavior issues, attendance issues, and we talk about it as a group. And we create social emotional interventions when needed for students, just like the teachers and interventionists are creating academic interventions for kids. And so Panorama has a ton of really user-friendly and easy to use resources for teachers. So that's been kind of an exciting development there. Any questions, comments about, I guess, anything that we presented? Well, thank you very much.
No, that's quite interesting, actually.
Very interesting.
So I think just, I'll wrap this up for me. When I said the Glimmer twins, right, and joking, but you know, going back to it, I'm a big Rolling Stones fan, right? You need Keith and Mick to write all those songs, right? That's okay. But, and that's their name. That's the Rolling Stones. That's the name they have for, like, who does all their work, is the Glimmer twins, right? And that's them. But anyway, we talk a lot. Yeah, I know I had to unpack that a little bit, but we talk a lot about MTSS, multiple tiers of support for students, and you usually see a triangle. I don't know if you've seen that model before. This is the two legs, right? So we've got the social emotional, we got the academic, but we also know they intertwine so much. It's not just like, let's just work on social emotional, because if you work on social emotional, there's an academic component. And when you work on that academic component, there's a social emotional component. So it's the two combined together that's building the system for students to be successful and to show growth. So,
And I would say, closure.
yeah,
it's such a pleasure to come out and be in this school. Like when I mentioned all those people that are coming out, the coaches that come from All Learners Network, and I'm out here and Shelley's out here, and the staff and the group of students and Angela that are all, the work that happens here is inspiring. So I just wanted you to know that because it's a special place.
Nice to hear.
No, I just find it exciting to see all of this coming together, because my education wasn't that exciting. I mean, they didn't realize I had a reading problem until 11th grade. It's nice to see that we're really looking at helping these boys get a good start.
Yes, it's an exciting time.
Yeah.
So what do you think of that?
I gave you a conversation.
Oh, thank you again.
Thank
You-
you.
are you
Yeah, thanks for
okay?
having
You
us.
Let them get going on.
Oh,
something
yeah,
else.
I think they should.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Be careful on
This
the.
is out of the way out here.
Yeah, that's
It's-
why we were late.
I was gonna say, for- it's closer for
That's
her.
closer for me, I'm in Newton.
Yeah, I gotta go back to.
Yeah, that's okay.
Thank you
You
so
gotta
much.
go over the hill down to town.
Yes, yes. Yeah, not so bad from my house. I love, end of the day meetings. Just scoot right on home.
Oh, you schedule it that way too.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Really nice to
Alright.
meet you. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thank you. We'll see you again.
No, it's nice to put face,
Yeah.
face-
Yeah,
for
that's-
sure.
So now, I think that was the other thing is wanting to, you hear their names and what do they do and how are
No
they,
more.
how are they impacting? One of the things we just spent a couple of days talking about this, like the called the through line, right?
Mhm.
So how are we getting, from students to teachers to principals to central office? That's, where their impact and how it's getting all the way down to students is really important, so.
We roll through the rest of this.
Yeah.
Sorry if we
Yeah,
kept
we're waiting for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's great.
I thought so. Okay, old business, update after school program and staffing and other plans. I guess.
I think it's underway, right?
It's underwear, there was a little, locally, there's someone's doing a Christmas kind of, or a holiday, theater project. That seems to be impacting a little bit of the daytime of when it's on the same day at the same time. And so, but I know that, Sarah's been working, has staff available, and some of the, things I saw from folks were, oh, I didn't know there wasn't gonna be transportation, so I can't do it, or things like, I don't know, Angela, is that?
Yeah, another thing that Sarah had said when she had talked about the structure of it would be that kids would remain here until 4:45. And so there's been some feedback that, parents want to be able to pick up their child whenever is convenient for them and not leave them here till 4:45. So they're opting to not partake. I know another family, because it's only being offered 2 days a week, they have kind of something worked out for themselves that just doing it 2 days a week just doesn't work, so they don't.
So is it only offered two? I thought it was three.
We wanted to offer it on Monday, but there's not enough staff available on Mondays.
So one of the biggest barriers that we've had across the SU, so not just here at Grafton, is just, securing the staff. And our staff are working all day long, and then, to have them continue to work, it can be challenging, and I think we saw that looking back, the closer we were to COVID, people were pretty burnt out, and I think we're moving away from that, which is really, really good, but if we have a paraprofessional who stays, we're on time and a half with that person, so the costs go up. So earlier when we were talking about budget, right, this is the biggest thing, it's like, if we've got a couple of families that want to do after school care, I gotta have a couple of staff members here. Is that cost effective? And so that's the balance that we're trying to.
Currently, we only have 2 students signed up.
I think that, I'm aware of a couple of questions that have come up and I've talked to Sarah and she was gonna send out, a letter to parents, I guess, to, clarify was the structure of what is going to happen during the after school care, time, cause it wasn't, it seemed a bit vague, like these are the things, but not specific, I guess, there was questions on what it is, and kids, I think, are a little hesitant because they aren't really sure.
And I have that letter that she sent me just to take a look at it, and my day has been so busy, I haven't had a chance to look at it, to be honest with you, so, but.
I mean, with 21C, the previous programming, we had to name clubs, name club leaders, say what that program was going to look like, but we could say we're gonna have crafts and theater, but then have kids sign up that aren't interested in that. So I think it's more about getting the students that want to come and then finding out what they are interested in, because it would look very different depending on the age, who comes. Some kids love crafts, some kids don't. So, I mean, it would be based on their interests. And there's, like I said, there's only 3 teachers that are able to do it, so. It would just be those 2 days.
Right.
And then in our survey as well, we had asked if there was anybody else willing to work, because it could be, because we do have 1 staff on Monday, but not 2. So it could be somebody from the community or a parent that was willing to work, as well. That would let us offer it 3 days.
So what's your bottom line in terms of the cost to run this for 2 days?
Nicole, that's in some board meeting minutes. I think it's.
So to run it, so a teacher's gonna cost you, I'm gonna do rough math here, Kathy, and I was an English major. So a teacher's gonna cost you about 30 bucks an hour. It's gonna be a few hours. And so, you know, you're talking at least $60 an hour if you've got two staff members here. And if you're going till 4:45, school gets out around 3, they get off. I mean, you're probably running it for 2 hours, so it's costing you $120 a day to run a minimum. And then on top of that, we've got to deal with, we provide snack, and so what's the impact on snack materials and things like that.
I thought at one time I heard $80,000, but I think that was your.
Not the whole thing.
I think that's, but it basically, I mean, if you wanna think about it, it's around $120 to $150 a day to run it. And, right now, it's, you know, we're offering it free because we're using ESSER funds. When the ESSER funds go away, we're looking at trying to fund the entire after-school programming using, alternative grant funds, which would potentially, would allow us to then charge on some kind of a sliding scale, but many of our families still, that's going to be, even if it's $5 a day that they can pay. I mean, you can do the quick math there, but we are looking at other grants that can provide subsidies, but then certain ones you get into, Department of Health now gets involved because it's childcare. And you have to be a licensed site to offer childcare, then you have certain stipulations around it, much like 21C. So we're really trying to look at how we can.
Have you asked the Polio Foundation?
Sorry,
The Polio Foundation here in Grafton?
I'm not aware of them, so no, we can definitely, so that's.
Joe Polio. He does small grants. And I think he's done stuff that's stolen much.
Yeah, Sarah and I have a meeting coming up where we're gonna start talking about how we can tap resources within the greater community to.
Okay, vacancy of board member Athens seat. I have not heard from the person that was interested.
I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry. I meant I don't know what's going on with her. I know what's going on at the meeting. Sorry. Just to be clear, I didn't mean and that I don't know what's going on in life. I meant with her. Unfortunately, I don't really know anybody else that might be interested. Lynn, do you know anyone?
I do not, I have not had anybody contact me. I've put it out there a number of ways, but
Maybe advertise it again.
yeah, I'll just keep, when I put out my articles, I'll just keep mentioning it. Hoping
Town
somebody.
meeting, we're just gonna have to write someone in, Lynn. We're just gonna have to pick someone and our two votes will put them on. I'm just kidding.
Should have made everybody fill, like throw a name in a hat on today when they were,
So we talked about our budget, the survey, I know way back there was a summer survey and we wanted some results on that, but I'm not sure what survey that was.
I think that was on what
Yeah.
Shelley just presented, so.
I thought. And then we have new business, bid proposal for painting and paving. You said no.
So, yeah, so we received 0 bids on the painting proposal, so, I've reached out to Steve Horton to say, okay, what can we do next? As I think we were chatting, just as the meeting was starting, it might be really targeting some specific, contractors to see if they're interested in what we can do. And just changing up how we go about posting those, because again, not that Grafton's out in the boonies, it's just a little bit further away that maybe some of your larger contractors aren't gonna look at it and understand it fully. So, I think that's what we're gonna need to do, just to kind of get out there. We've got a little bit of time because obviously we're not gonna be doing any painting until spring, until it warms up, so, but I think we can get someone on the docket. The paving, proposal, I have copies, I don't know if anyone has. Okay, Lynn, do you?
I have,
Okay,
I thought I had it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
so we received, if Lynn wants that. So we only received 1 bid on the paving from Basin Brothers. And their bid, their initial bid is $14,900, and that is just to do the, to resurface, your whole parking lot. They did in their cover letter, suggest that it would be, advantageous also to do a milling, which would be to grind down, your existing, and that would help with a firmer base, hit a hero better. They do it on the roads, right? They're doing it on the road in here. And so that would be an additional $5,800. This bid is well under the $40,000 bid limit, so having 1 bid is fine.
Yeah.
It's not hurting you in any way.
Yeah.
And, Steve's been peppering me like, can I call him? Can I call him? And I said, I gotta come to the board. So we just need a motion from you all to.
I make a motion that, we hire Basin Brothers to pave our parking lot based on the quote that they presented to us on 10/24/2023.
May I ask, do you want to include the milling?
I would like to include the milling.
Yeah, right. Do you have a second? Second, okay, Lynn, second. So the motion on the floor for Basin Brothers to do the paving, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
We'll charge it to our surplus fund.
Tell them now.
We'll get on that and see when they can start. I mean, they're right down the road doing the work.
Yeah.
Maybe they can just pop up.
Yeah.
I'll need the parking lot for a couple days.
So, director's comments. Any? Rachel? Lynn?
I was really fascinated with having the ladies come in and explain. I remember glancing through that today and having no clue what that was talking about, so. It's exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad they're here, to listen to the information, also to meet them. But I like the fact that everybody's working together as a big team. That's for the improvements, that we wanna see with the kids. That's it.
Like to thank you, people coming out on a
Yeah,
evening
nasty
tonight.
night.
As I drove down 2 miles from my house, it was not very good on the dirt road today.
It's pretty muddy.
All I got out today.
So you have Chris online, you just.
Oh, Krista,
Hi, just general thanks, Angela, so much for, I know we mentioned this a lot, but the Friday thing you send out is really great. And she was able to put in some things for Athens very quickly. So I just appreciate that. And general thanks to working with everyone and Andy. I think we've got a great group and we're doing a good job.
thank you.
Thanks.
Date and time for our next meeting. Nicole, what do we have? December?
I wanna say it's like the 7th, no, you're the 14th, yeah, the 14th. My son's birthday.
Oh,
It's like, why do I know that date? But yeah, no, I remember that.
I know we're past this, but it came into my head that in this quote, it said there's a seasonal weather release, so any work after November 1st is at our risk. It's not guaranteed. So I don't know if that's something we need to take into consideration.
So we'll talk to them and schedule it, but I think our, we'll try and get them to do it in the spring, if not
Yeah.
summer.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
we don't.
We're not gonna have
have
them come out
kids.
here tomorrow.
I mean, the summer would probably be the best time.
We don't wanna impact school. And,
Yeah.
and I saw that Gary had gotten those potholes filled
Yeah.
already, so, I mean, it'd probably be advantageous to wait till the summer anyway.
Okay, I just want to
Thank you.
bring that up.
Need a motion for adjournment.
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
Okay. Everybody have a safe night and a good night and good weekend. Think of our veterans, it's Veterans Day on Saturday.
Well,